Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, staring up at the ceiling, trying to wrap your head around the sheer, mind-bending mechanics of the universe? Well, today's explainer is dedicated to those exact kinds of late-night thoughts, the really profound theological mysteries that kind of shake the very foundation of belief. We're diving into a fascinating source document today. It's a deeply philosophical inquiry, packed with the kinds of questions most of us are honestly a bit too intimidated to ask out loud. Okay, let's dive right into this, because the paradoxes we're about to unpack are incredibly thought-provoking.
Part 1. A Seeker's Doubts.
So, our journey starts with a specific seeker from our source material, Pandit Shri Ji, and honestly, his deep emotional questions really mirror the hidden doubts we all carry around. Let's look at his very first inquiry. If God is completely liberated, entirely self-sufficient, and lacks absolutely nothing, why would he ever have the desire to create the universe? It's a staggering thought, right? I mean, desire usually stems from lacking something. You want what you don't have. So if the divine is 100% complete, the very act of wanting to create something presents an immediate, massive logical paradox. Moving on to part 2. Is God liberated or bound?
The source maps out a logical dead end perfectly here. On one hand, we have the first option. God is mukta, meaning entirely liberated. But, as we just talked about, if he's totally free and complete, having a desire to create completely contradicts that completeness. Okay, so on the other hand, what if God is amukta, meaning he's bound, subject to desires and wants, just like you and me? Well, if he's bound, why should we worship him at all? He wouldn't exactly be supreme, would he? And this brilliantly illustrates the inescapable trap of trying to define the divine using our own human logic.
Now, theologians often try to wiggle out of this trap by suggesting a third option. They propose that God is mukta amukta, basically a paradoxical, simultaneous state of being both liberated and bound. Sounds super profound, right? But our source points out a huge catch. While it sounds deep, it effectively makes the divine utterly supernatural and fundamentally indescribable. If God operates on some completely different logic where he can be both free and bound at the exact same time, well, he completely bypasses human comprehension.
And that realization leads our seeker directly to a really compelling follow-up question. If the divine is conceptually indescribable, entirely beyond our binary way of understanding things, what's the whole point of devotion? If we literally cannot comprehend God, how can the act of Hari Bhajan, our singing, our praying, our active devotion actually bridge that massive gap and help us see or realize him?
Part 3. The fruits of karma versus devotion. This philosophical conundrum naturally cascades right into our everyday faith. Let's walk through this logical breakdown step by step, because it's fascinating. First, traditional philosophy tells us that the fruits of our karma, the direct results of our actions, are immutable. You reap exactly what you sow, no exceptions. Second, the entire premise of devotion is very often an attempt to appeal to the divine to change our wheel of fate. We pray for a better outcome, right? So the crucial point is this third idea. If God actually listens to our devotion and alters our deserved fate, doesn't that mean he possesses raga dvesha? In simple terms, that translates to attachment and aversion, or just divine bias. Think about it. If God plays favorites based on who prays the loudest, he's no longer an impartial, perfect judge. You can see how this creates a massive tension. If prayer actually disrupts the perfect, objective justice of karma, the text poses this huge, unresolved inquiry. What is the truly universal or omnipresent system of devotion? How does a flawless, universal system of prayer even function if it's pitted directly against the strict, unyielding laws of cause and effect? Let's get into Part 4, the thief and divine justice. To truly drive this paradox home, the text sets up a highly relatable yet totally surprising moral conundrum about divine intervention. Just listen to this quote. God inspires the thief to steal and commands the good to stay awake. Isn't that staggering? I mean, really, let that sink in for a second. We're grappling with this incredibly vivid analogy right alongside the author. If God is truly omnipresent, the absolute prime mover of all things, then he is fundamentally playing both sides of the cosmic chessboard. Let's dissect the mechanics of this analogy together. Step 1. God, being the ultimate source of absolutely every thought, inspires the thief's action to steal. Step 2. God simultaneously warns the potential victims to stay awake and protect themselves. Step 3. The thief inevitably gets caught and suffers the painful fruits of his karma. And finally, Step 4. The divine remains completely untouched and unblemished by the whole affair. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the meticulous way it exposes the ultimate irony. The puppet master is pulling every single string, yet the puppet alone takes the blame and the punishment. Which leaves us staring directly at this ultimate question. Where is the justice in this system? If the creator orchestrates both the crime and the defense, how in the world can the created be solely responsible for the outcome? It's a moral dilemma that completely shakes the very bedrock of divine fairness.
Part 5. The Whirlpool of Theism and Doubt.
Having completely dismantled these logical structures, the author brilliantly shifts to an emotional conclusion, using this incredibly powerful metaphor. They describe these logical doubts as a relentless river of existential thought. It's just been flowing through our short lives for a very, very long time. And what holds this heavy water back? The dam of theism. Our structured religious belief acts as this fragile, temporary dam, artificially blocking the constant stream of rational questioning. Let's see how this builds into an inevitable psychological cycle. First off, doubts are a totally natural flow in human life. They're a constant. Second, our faith in theism temporarily alter the direction of that flow, right? It gives us comfort, it gives us structure, but look at the third point because it's incredibly poignant. The text notes that the very moment it gets a chance, the sheer pressure of logic leaves the dam battered. The doubts break through and naturally resume their original, questioning course. You just can't hold back the water of inquiry forever.
And because this ocean of doubt is just so vast and overwhelming, the text ends with a humble, almost desperate appeal. The editor asks the erudite scholars of their publication to step forward and become a modern-day Sage Augustia. Now, if you aren't familiar, in ancient mythology, Sage Augustia famously drank the entire ocean to expose the demons hiding within it. Here, our seeker is basically begging the scholars to consume and resolve this vast ocean of logical uncertainty, promising eternal gratitude if they can finally provide clear, definitive answers.
And honestly, that is exactly where the source material leaves us, standing right on the shore of that very ocean. It forces us to ask, who can finally resolve the eternal tension between faith and logic? Is it even possible to reconcile the absolute freedom of the divine with the rigid laws of karma? Or are we forever bound to question the mechanics of the universe? It's a spectacular puzzle, one that invites all of us to keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep exploring the profound depths of human belief.